I'm very happy because I finally found the dialing that works for this coffee, which I bought in Chamonix. And this is the first hand grinder that I own for coffee. Normally I would just ask them to grind my coffee when I bought it, when I would buy it in the shop. And I started with 21, which was way too astringent. I like the lemony taste, but it was just washed out lemon. And then I went back to 18, which was super bitter. Then 19, which was still bitter, although it's only 3 clicks away. And now I'm at 20. And it's starting to have some of the complexity of the flavor. It's still a little bit on the bitter notes, so maybe I should do 20 plus 1 click. And then maybe the notes would come out better. It's supposed to have riz rouge, notes de baie, de fruits rouges, et de cacao. So yeah, definitely the bitterness of cacao is coming through. And a little bit of the bitey feel of red currants. I don't know. By the way, I didn't want to talk about coffee. Oh my god, but it's so good. I wanted to talk about training with a movement specialist one-on-one and what that can do for you. So if any of you have been on my website and looked at, I use sensory movement with awareness to recalibrate your nervous system, maybe you've gone like, what does that mean? So what does it mean? Like, what do you do with a movement specialist one-on-one? Why do you have to spend so much money on that? Well, the thing is that you're a sentient being, so you have a nervous system, and the nervous system basically records what happens to you, like these experiences, and dials them in. So when you perceive something, you kind of get triggered by these backlogs of experiences. And sometimes you get stuck on focusing on one particular part of an experience. And it can start to overload your nervous system. And the experience can start with a strong sensation, like if you hit yourself, but if you keep hitting yourself, it could escalate into pain. And then it can become trauma, and then every time you get some pressure on the hand, you might trigger that past memory of harm or like strong experience. And you can start to zoom in and become very sensitive to any pressure on a particular area or any sensations that remind you of that strong experience. So the nervous system cannot absorb and recalibrate itself without outside input. You need new sensations, like maybe someone touching you on the finger, in order to take away a little bit of the dominance of that experience in your brain real estate complex, so that it can shift the way that you're perceiving and orienting in a movement, so that you don't enter a movement with this protective holding around an area that was damaged or injured. And it might not even have been damaged or injured, it just might have had a strong sensation. Like if you've experienced a lot of stress, your psoas, this muscle here, might have clutched and given you back pain, and you might have thought, oh my god, I have like intervertebral disc compression, and now I have to be very careful every time I move. If you're very careful every time you move, your ribs start getting really tight, Once your ribs start getting tight, your diaphragm starts getting tight. Once your diaphragm starts getting tight, you can't breathe. Then your brain starts going like, oh, I don't have enough oxygen. And my internal space is not being massaged, like the diaphragm kind of like pumps gently up and down and massages, compresses the organs and lets them float. So it creates this like pulsing action which helps stimulate fluids in your body. So once you start tinkering with your holding patterns, you can get into a lot of chronic pain. And it starts very gentle. I mean, it can start with a real injury, but it could just start with stress that goes into tightness, which you don't notice in the beginning because we're so focused on getting a job done that we actually suppress and we power through. I'm not really good at powering through. That's why I'm not really good with organizing my life. That's not great. You should be able to regulate your nervous system a bit so that you're not completely the slave of all of your sensations, but you also shouldn't like dull your perception to a point where you're not feeling anything so that you can power through and get the job done. So if you power through, get the job done, ignore the pre-pain signals like tightness or discomfort, tiredness, then the system the holding will continue. You're not putting any fresh energy. You're not shifting the way you're moving. You're not sensing new connections with the world. You're not feeling the air on your cheek. You're just kind of like holding, and that place starts to become like you pass the movement and then jump over the holding part and go into the hand with tightness, and then just that starts to block off the circulation, the lymphatic drainage there, and you start to get a bit like an aquarium effect, like a low-grade inflammation. Oh, that's not good. Low-grade inflammation will trigger your central nervous system, will go like, ew, it stinks down there. This is so bad. And I don't know what's going down there, but could you like do something so it starts sending you a bit of stress hormones, anxiety? You don't even know why. Maybe you have butterflies in your stomach. It starts clutching your lower back, and the pain might be something that was just in your shoulder that you didn't move through or like perceive a little bit of fresh air or experience some water dripping on you because you're so focused on powering through that you've like narrowed down your perception and you're not feeling all the sensory stimulation. You haven't had good coffee. So that can escalate into a holding pattern that starts to become louder and louder and louder and draining out all the other beauty of life. That becomes chronic pain. Chronic pain is a bitch to deal with. I work with people that come to me with chronic pain, and they're so very aware of a particular part of their body. I was also like that, so I know how difficult it is to move your awareness from a place of pain. You're asking me to shift my awareness from somewhere where I feel vulnerable. No, I'm not going to do that. I know there's something wrong there, and I need to be hyper vigilant and observe it and protect it at all times. If you continue doing that, you're denying fresh input into your nervous system, and the nervous system can only shift patterns of movement if it has new experiences. If it's only relying on the backlog of what you know and repeatedly like play in the backlog of your brain because you're scared that if you forget it, you're going to damage that part because you're feeling pain there and it's getting triggered, then you cannot move forward. So what we do with sensory somatic education is we create a safe environment for you to experience your body in different orientations and start to connect with sensations of comfort, pleasure, ease, flow. And basically that is what it means to recalibrate your nervous system. It happens gradually. A muscle that's been holding is not just gonna let go because you've done an exercise. No, you have to do the exercise with awareness, with particular conditions that can give you sensations of support. And over time, once your body feels safe, it could release that muscle and let go. If your psoas muscle is clutching, I can tell you right now, it's gonna take you months to undo that. I don't know, maybe you're super good at releasing stuff. Apparently, I'm not, and most of the people who come to me, it takes a bit of time. It takes a bit of getting to know what the hell are we doing in this sensory somatic practice one-on-one with me, where you're paying me a lot of money for me to work individually with you, to notice where the tension is, how gravity moves through your body, and to give you specific personal cues for you to start creating conditions of safety in your body through your gait and posture and different orientations, so that you start releasing gripping, releasing nervous system over tensing. And over tensing somewhere means that the antagonist muscle or somewhere else you've just collapsed, because you cannot be tensing and this cannot like keep balancing. It will give up and become limp, and you're not going to be using it because you're constantly like using something that's giving you a sensation of protection, and you think that is good enough and that you're safe. You're not safe, because if you're constantly doing something obsessively, subconsciously, it doesn't matter, or consciously if you're taking drugs, it will deregulate other parts of your life. So what we do is we try to balance engaging and relaxing the muscle. And if it's gotten in a pattern of constantly tensing because it feels that if it lets go it's going to be damaged, if you feel that you move through your lower back you're going to damage yourself, you have to do this gradually with a lot of care and support, with awareness of the ground, with awareness of the world around you. You have to open your eyes. So there is a lot of things that we do in a session over a period of time. I think it takes 2 months for a person to start to understand the practices that I work with. And additionally, I give you like self-massage techniques to start hydrating and producing collagen in particular areas of your body, so that the nervous system gets additional feedback of safety and suppleness and a fluidity, and it allows for the practices that we do to become better supported, done with more ease. It's like basically having a massage 3 or 4 times a week, but you do it yourself, and I teach you how to do it in a way that stimulates fluid exchange in the body and helps flush out low-grade inflammation towards the lymphatics and clear your body. So what do we do in sensory movement with awareness? We're creating new sensations in the body to deregulate obsessive focusing on a particular part, or obsessive repetition on particular neurological pathways. If you learn to tighten a particular part all the time, it just like once you step into a situation when you recognize certain codes like this type of pressure, you go straight down the slide of that neural pathway. Could we create a new neural pathway so maybe we engage a different muscle and I don't have to constantly like grip there? I could maybe use some other part of myself. Use more parts of yourself. Use all of you is what we do in sensory education, and repatterning the body to include more of you, to include new pathways in you. And that's a fascinating subject that really has taken me 20 years. I went down the road of classical yoga, very religious. I'm not going to go into explaining how that works, but it's a bit different than functional anatomy-based movement practices, which borrow heavily from yoga, because classical yoga does create conditions for you to deregulate your autonomic nervous system. But sometimes people hijack it and then start using it for religious identity building purposes. and they don't actually understand the technique and how it works, so they don't know how to use it in a targeted way for their body. So like within the 20 years, I spent 10 years with religious yoga and then 10 years studying anatomy, functional movement, sensory education, body work techniques, in order to really understand, what does this do? What does that do? How and when do I use it? And also training my eyes and body to sense your body. So it's called body reading, which I love doing. It's basically like drinking coffee. You learn to sense, and because I've spent so much time practicing with my body in a studio with other people, noticing how this movement creates that kind of pressure, where does it travel to. So when I see your patterning, I can recognize it, and I can see holdings in your body, and I can create conditions for you to undo that holding by transferring weight somewhere else or using another part of yourself. And that takes some time. So after a consultation, when I get a feel for what your main issues might be, and that doesn't happen just in one session straight away, but I have pretty good awareness and can start to sense in what might be triggering your issues with tension, or issues with chronic pain, or issues with problems of sleeping. There is a lot of things that people might be experiencing: digestive problems, anxiety, inability to think, brain fog. These are all issues that ultimately can be rebalanced by working with movement, because taking pills is not going to create conditions for you to experience safety. If you're in acute pain and you need that steroid to give you the sensation that, oh, I'm not dying, like I'm not permanently damaged, yeah, okay, you can take it, but it's not going to shift the neurological pattern of how you engage whatever part it is that you're over tightening and compressing the joint. So sensory movement really recalibrates your nervous system so that you can start functioning in a more balanced way with engaging and relaxing. And you're not just going into like some people go into collapse. You know, if you've experienced a lot of trauma, you could become helpless and you're just like, oh, I just can't do anything. And you could go into depression, which is like a psychological pathway, but it starts to affect your body. You start to collapse, your sternum starts to collapse. You start having problems with your back, with your feet, with your neck. So it's two ways. You could be overperforming, or you could just have experienced something very difficult and gone into depression and in a freeze mode. But so when we study movement, we really study a lot around the nervous system and contemporary notions around how the nervous system works. It's not just a biomechanical old school approach of, oh, I'm going to strengthen this muscle, this one's going to relax, and they're going to balance out. No, it really has to do with sensations of safety, ease, protection, and how does movement give you those sensations? Because chemicals won't. Chemicals can try to regulate your nervous system, but it's never as good as your central nervous system. It's making 1,000 calculations every single second. So it's really much nicer for you to start recalibrating your nervous system using movement and sensations of perception of your environment, of your internal space. Putting in new sensations like, I don't know, good coffee. Softening around strong perceptions of tension. Allowing for the attention to shift, and to shift gradually, not jumping, not gripping to the new place, not over concentrating. This is something that gets trained. So the first consultation gives me an idea where we can go with you. The first 2 months, you're learning the basic principles of the neurosomatic techniques with which I work, because I don't want you to do what I say. I want you to start understanding what you're doing and how it's affecting you, so that you can use it in your everyday life, so that when you sit and have coffee, you can drop in some practices of somatic awareness and help yourself in the morning, because I'm not there with you 24 hours. You're living your life. You have to acquire skills of regulating your nervous system, and you can do that through movement and hydrating your tissues. Like learning the neurofascial ways of hydrating your tissues will give you a super great boost. It's like somebody holding your hand, helping you out, giving you a small massage every day, but you're in control and you can do it yourself. It takes a bit of sensitivity to start understanding how much pressure is too much pressure, and what are the 5 steps that I want to use to start stimulating fluid exchange in the body, production of collagen, and flushing out of metabolic waste towards the lymphatics. So 2 months to get to know the technique. And then if you have chronic pain, I'm going to tell you straight out, you need 6 months to 1 year for you to invest in somatic training with one-on-one. And then you can join a group if you want. But before you start to understand the compensations and undoing the compensations in your body, you're going to have to spend some money. And people think that movement, I don't have to spend money on that. I could go to a group yoga class. In a group yoga class, you will not learn about your body. Maybe some gross basics, but nobody's gonna have the attention to see how tension passes through your body, how little shifts in your posture and patterns can completely reorganize the way you recruit muscles in your body. This is one-on-one work. And I hear about people having this attitude, we spend money on travel, we spend money on clothes, we spend money on furniture. Like this girl, she told a colleague of mine, she's like, oh yeah, I have really tight back, but you know what, I'm gonna fix that. I'm just gonna buy a new desk. I'm fine, and I'm gonna go to a yoga class. I'm gonna go to this flow yoga class. 9 months later, when I saw her, how's your back? Oh, it's getting tighter. I wonder why. Have you gained any awareness of where you're tensing when you sit and breathe? Have you switched patterns in the way you recruit your body? To switch patterns, you have to first release the tension. So anyway, that's sensory education for you. I'm gonna finish my